Welcome to Capturing Kenosha podcast. I'm your host, Eric Barlow. We created Capturing Kenosha podcast to promote the natural and architectural beauty found in Kenosha County by featuring the pictures of local photographers. Each episode, we will be joined by a local photographer who will share their expertise and passion for photography in Kenosha. Today on Capturing Kenosha podcast, we will be talking to Mike Middleton. Mike is one of the administrators of Capturing Kenosha Facebook page. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So, Mike, I've been friends with you for quite some time now, and we both kind of joined photography around the same time. So why don't you just let the listeners kind of know how you got involved in photography, what started you, what do you enjoy about it?
Yeah, I would say I got started in photography back in 2019, but it kind of stems from kind of a whole life of being interested in nature and wildlife and the outdoors and being involved in technology and stuff. But in 2019, went with my family out to Yellowstone National Park, which was incredible. And, you know, with the evolution of cell phone devices and cameras getting better, I had kind of started getting a little bit into photography with my cell phone and stuff. And when I was out there, I had some binoculars and I was putting my phone up to the binoculars to take pictures of animals that I saw. And the pictures were okay. They weren't the greatest. But when we got back home, my dad said to me, he's like, you need to get a real camera. And I didn't really have the financial means to do that. And so he said, go get what you want. And so I went out and got a Canon 80D to start with and a 70-200 lens, which I quickly found out wasn't long enough for wildlife and the things I wanted to do, but really got me started down that path. And then, as we all know, COVID hit in 2020. And well, actually before that, I had my fourth child a few months after I got my camera. So that was a great excuse to take a lot of pictures of, you know, my new baby, begin to understand how to use a camera. And then COVID hit March of 2020 and we were shut down. And I just so happened to have the Chewocki Prairie in my backyard. And so that was really a good excuse for me to get outside, start to use my camera some more, learn to understand how it works better. And just really it's a therapeutic way to kind of escape everything that's going on and be out in nature. And so that's kind of how I got started in photography.
Yeah, I was going to say we started very similar times, and I didn't always use my camera. It wasn't until you started using your camera and forcing me to go out and take pictures until I started really understanding the settings and how it works and where you go from, you know, different landscape to wildlife to portraits. And so my growth really extends because of your growth. So I just appreciate you always pushing me to continue to take pictures. Even to this day, you're like, hey, let's go. And it's like, I don't feel like it, but let's go. So I appreciate you in that scenario.
Well, thanks for saying that. And that's one of the things for me about photography and probably most things that I do in general in life is I really enjoy doing it with people. I'll go out and take pictures by myself, but the joy that I find is double that if I get to do that with other people. So yeah, I do kind of pressure other people to come along for the ride too, and that it makes it more fun.
Yeah, we've talked about that many times where the whole purpose of taking photography, at least for me, is hanging out with friends. And so when we've gone and taken pictures of owls or gone out to Colorado and taken pictures of, you know, the elk or whatever it might be, it's pretty awesome to encounter nature that way and capture it, but it's more fun just hanging out with you.
For sure.
So, as it goes for Capturing Kenosha, you're pretty involved. And so why don't you let the listeners kind of understand how you got involved with Tom, and where this is going and what's happening lately?
Yeah, so like I just said, I'm energized by being with people, doing things together, collaborating with people. And before the Capturing Kenosha community existed, I was kind of thinking to myself, like, it would be cool to put together a Facebook group of local photographers so we could interact, get a place to post our pictures, encourage each other and all that. But my life is pretty busy, 4 kids and work and way too many other hobbies. Mm-hmm. And so I just never really got around to doing that. And probably about a year after I had that idea, I saw that the Capturing Kenosha Facebook group was created by Tom and some other photographers that he was already beginning to form relationships with. And so I jumped in right away from the beginning. And shortly thereafter, Tom and I had kind of interacted a little bit online, and I think he shared this story in the last podcast, but there was this guy who was taking these incredible pictures by the lake with these cool rocks in it, and I had reached out to him, and I was like, hey, can you tell me where this spot is? I'd like to get some pictures too. And so he agreed to take me to see that place, and so I reached out to Tom and said, hey, you want to come with too? And so that's where we kind of first met in person, and then from there we started talking about how we kind of had a similar passion for not only photography but for the Kenosha community, which I was born and raised in, so I have a deep love of this community as well. And from there we just started talking more about things we could do with the group and ways to make it grow and evolve and become something more than just a place where people come and post pictures.
And one of those things was the Capturing Kenosha calendar last year. And so you were a pretty big part of that. Why don't you just walk us through how that came to be?
Yeah. So, I had mentioned to Tom, I was like, we have all these great pictures of Kenosha, and we want to do more with the group, ways that we can help improve our community in a tangible way. And I was like, it seems like a no-brainer to make a calendar and use it as a fundraiser. And Tom was like, yeah, we kind of tried doing that in the past, but there was all this red tape we had to go through and hurdles we had to jump over, and it just never really happened. And I was like, well, I think I can probably help push through those things. I've managed a lot of projects in my professional career, and I think I could help coordinate that effort. And so we just kind of went for it and stumbled a bit here and there. It became a bigger project, more complex than we kind of thought it would be on the front end. We actually had to end up forming a business, which is called Photographers for Kenosha, which is finally now a nonprofit, which is really cool. That kind of helps a lot. And everything went really well. I mean, we were able to sell a lot of calendars. We raised all the money that they needed to restore the lighthouse. And in fact, I finally was just able to drop off the check for that yesterday because they had to become a nonprofit on their end. One of the things we learned in the process for us to give them that money. And so they're going to start doing the more work. They've already done some work on the lighthouse that's been repainted and stuff, and going to do a lot more work this summer, and hoping to open it up for tours and stuff maybe later this summer or in the fall so people can come and check it out.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool. So that was last year's calendar. Is there this year's calendar?
Yeah, so we're definitely planning on giving it a go again. And our theme for this year is going to simply be Capturing Kenosha. We want this calendar to really just highlight the city of Kenosha, all the natural beauty that exists and the architectural beauty and history that exists, and obviously leveraging the artistic ability of so many of the photographers we have in our community. And so we just want people to submit pictures to us that are going to represent the city well. And one of the cool things about the calendar last year is we had a lot of people from out of state and out of the city order the calendar people who grew up in Kenosha and also have a love for the city, and it's a way for them to just remember. And so we're hoping that we can kind of continue that theme, and this can be a great gift for people who live here or don't live here any longer, but would like to still remember the scenes from the city.
So just to clarify, is it just the city of Kenosha or county of Kenosha as well?
Yeah, so the rules of our group is anything within Kenosha County.
Okay.
So it could be anything in the county, which is cool because there's a lot of great rural, areas of the city that makes for some beautiful scenes as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, most of the pictures we see obviously are of downtown Kenosha, but there are many things out in the county that have yet to be explored, and so I'm kind of excited to see what people come up with and what they're shooting, and then being like, hey, like you said earlier, where was that? So I can head out that way and take a picture or two. So very cool. So the Birdathon just finished. How did you find that? Was it successful? Was it fun? Would you ever do it again?
So first of all, I got the idea for the Birdathon actually stemming from an owl trip that you and I did to go shoot some great grays in the upper part of Minnesota, just north of Lake Superior. There was a great gray owl eruption going on, and I dragged you and Andy along to go on that trip. It was pretty fun.
Oh, yeah.
And so in the process of doing some research for that trip, I came across this birding group that did a birdathon. Really, it was just over a weekend where photographers would go out and get as many pictures as they could of different species, and different species were worth different points depending on how rare they were. And I was like, that sounds really fun. And I wonder how our group would respond to something like that. And I have a feeling most people probably were like, what the heck is this thing?
Yeah.
But again, in the nature of the group, we didn't want to just do something to do something. We wanted to do something that could have an impact in the community as well in some way. And so I reached out to the Oi Audubon Society, which is a Kenosha and Racine birding group that does a lot of preservation work as well, and said, hey, first of all, could you help us with this, with coming up with a list of bird species and points? And secondly, if we could raise some funds from this, how could we help you guys out with the work you're doing? And so they were excited about it. They agreed to partner with us in this project, and the money that we raised is going to go to purchase bluebird boxes, which obviously houses bluebirds, but also a bunch of other species of birds as well. And they're going to be putting some new ones up and replacing some old ones at Petrifying Springs Park and on the Parkside campus as well. But as far as participation goes, we had 10 people who participated. A lot of people got a lot of pictures of a lot of cool species of birds, and we raised over $500. And I think that's a success. I was hoping we'd have a few more people participating. We'd be able to raise a little bit more money, but I know that all the people who did participate really had a good time with it. And so I think we'll give it another try next year and maybe tweak some of the things, maybe extend the period of time a little bit longer. I know for me, I was going through a lot of stuff and I was pretty busy, so it was even hard for me to get out, even though I was able to do it myself as well. So hopefully we'll get more participation next year and can raise even some more funds to do some good work in the community.
Yeah, I would agree that extending it would be a good thing. We kind of talked about it over text the other day because, like you said, that week for me was crazy busy, and I got 2 pictures. Both of them are nests in my backyard, and so I felt like, I'm not going to post just a picture of a dove and a little gosling. And so if it was a month long or a couple weeks, then I would have had a more opportunity. I think I would have shared more. So extending a little bit. Plus, there's still some birds that are migrating. Mm-hmm. Some migrated a little earlier as well.
Exactly.
But overall, that was a lot of birds. I was going to say the winning person, what was her name?
Charlie is her name. Yep.
How many pictures of different species?
I don't remember for sure off the top of my head. It was 50 something. I want to say like 56, 58. And the cool thing about her is that she was an 11-year-old that is just getting into photography, and she just had a blast doing this and obviously did a great job. So
Yeah, I mean, there were pictures of birds I'm like, I've never seen that in Wisconsin. Did they go outside? So that was pretty cool. So just kind of getting back to your photography, is there a style that you particularly enjoy?
I don't know if there's one specific style that I enjoy, and I'm still kind of figuring out what my niche is, if I have one even. That's one of the cool things about photography is you can always keep learning more and expanding what you want to do with it. So like I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of interest just in nature and wildlife, and photography is a great excuse for me to slow down the pace of life, to get outside, to be in nature. I think that can be so healthy to do. And so for me, it kind of started more with an interest specifically in wildlife. We don't have a ton of wildlife in this area, but we have more than you might think. And so I've kind of found some places you can go and stuff to take pictures. Obviously doing some family pictures and stuff like that. So got a little into portraits, although it's a lot easier to take a picture of a bird that's posing for you than pose a person, in my opinion.
And especially your family.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that can be challenging. But I've gotten more into landscape. I think probably for a lot of photographers, it kind of starts out where you're kind of in a documentary phase where you're just like, oh, cool, I can get that thing or that bird close up and pretty sharp and just kind of figuring that out. But then you start thinking about, okay, how can I make this picture better? Composition, background, lighting, like all those kind of things. And I think I'm improving in those areas and continuing to learn more and more about how important those things are. Really even more important than the equipment you have, to be honest with you. If you got a good subject with a great background and great light, you could get a much better, cell phone picture than you could get on a super expensive camera. But the super expensive cameras and the long lenses definitely give you an advantage in a lot of ways as well. Kind of been cool that we're kind of in this peak season of solar activity. And so we've got to experience quite a bit of the Aurora Borealis, even down in Kenosha here. That was really last year. This year's kind of been a clunker so far. Yep. So I actually bought a second camera recently, a full frame camera, kind of really to be able to capture that better. But it's good for portraits and other things as well. So haven't been able to use that yet to do that. So
nope.
Really mostly into wildlife, nature, landscape, that kind of thing the most.
Well, I was going to say, in the beginning, when we were both just learning, I remember us having many conversations about basically settings versus setting up the picture. And I was always one that I always looked at, what does this picture look like, and forget about the settings. And you're always the one that is like, settings, forget about what the picture looks like. Mm-hmm. And we'd call pixel peeping, and being like, can I see my reflection in the bird's eyeball? And I'd be like, what are you talking about? Look at the bird itself. It's upside down or something, But by having those conversations and going back and forth, I think it just has made us both better photographers. I don't struggle with the crispness of a picture as much. I mean, there's definitely moments and scenarios, but overall, I'm much better with my settings and still have that background of, does this look good overall? And I think vice versa, I've seen you grow tremendously. I haven't had you ask, like, zoom in and see if I can see. So I appreciate that back and forth. It's really helped me with my photography.
Oh, likewise, I totally agree.
Yeah. Just curious, do you have a favorite trip, a favorite moment, a favorite shoot?
To narrow it down to one, would be hurdle. And now that I'm kind of thinking about this, maybe I could.
I think I could too. I bet you I know what you're going to say.
You think it's going to be the same as yours or no?
I would pretty much guarantee it.
Okay. That's actually one of the other cool things about photography is that it gives you an excuse to go on adventures and trips and stuff like that. And when you go with your family, you do got to try to find that balance too.
Family vacations and photography is not the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah. But I think you mentioned earlier, we've gotten to do some really cool trips in our, short time of doing this, but.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
I want to do it at the same time. I'm just curious if we're going to both say the same thing. So on 3, you're going to just say the word, and I'm going to say a word, and we'll see if it's the same.
Okay.
All right? 3, 2, 1. Bears.
Grizzly bears.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so.
Yeah, for sure. So we've been out to Colorado, went all over the state there. Such a beautiful state. Got
that
to
was
photograph
awesome.
a lot of landscapes, a lot of cool wildlife and stuff. We've done Northern Lights together.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, some really cool experiences.
That was.
We went up to go catch the great gray owls. That was pretty fun.
Yep.
Fun little quick trip.
15-hour drive back and forth in one day. That was fun.
But for both of our 20th anniversaries,
With our wives.
And it was
Their permission.
Yeah, their idea, really.
Well.
Which was pretty cool. Well, my wife's idea.
Okay.
Yeah. I think she wanted to do a cruise, though, versus what we did. So
Yeah.
there was some compromise there. But going up to Alaska was just amazing. And in that trip, we got to do a fly-out day trip to this remote lake, Crescent Lake, I think it was called. Float plane. Had to take one of those because there's no roads that go to this place. We flew over the top of glaciers, volcanoes, so just the scenes flying in and flying out in and of itself was probably worth the trip. But then when we got there, we got to go in a boat with a guide, and actually there was supposed to be a whole family with us that had canceled. So we were in this pretty big John boat, just you and I with this guide, and he's like, "What do you want to do?" Most people take these trips to go fish for salmon, and then they might do a little bear sightseeing at the end of their time. But we were like, we just want to go get pictures of bears. And so this guy just drove us around the lake for, was it 6 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours?
At least 6 hours.
Yeah.
Had to been.
And it was incredible because these bears had all come to this lake because there was tons of salmon that were spawning, I think. And so they weren't really interested in eating us because they were interested in eating the fish. And so we got to get pretty close to these bears. And we got some awesome pictures, but just the experience and even just the scenes there was incredible. Now we did get rained on for a portion of that trip, which made it a little interesting, but it was fine. We were kind of ready for that, and just an incredible experience.
Yeah.
Definitely a bucket list thing for me.
Oh, absolutely. You had to kind of talk me into it because it was a little bit expensive. And I was like, just for some bear pictures and maybe. And at the end, it was worth every cent plus more. Just seeing that blue in the lake, it just was amazing. We saw eagles, many, many, many bears, brown bears that, as we learned, they're not called grizzlies up there.
Oh, yeah. Whoops.
Yeah. So, but that was, by far one of the coolest things.
Yeah.
Being about 20 feet from a bear as it's ripping the salmon in half. It's pretty intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any other bucket list shots that you are currently striving to get done or take?
Yeah. A bucket list for me has always been to go on an African safari. And my wife and I talked about doing that for our honeymoon. And we've talked about it a few times since. She's not super interested in that trip. So it may be a trip without her. I don't know if or when that will happen, but that's bucket list. Would also love to go to Australia just to see the scenes there, maybe New Zealand. Iceland to catch the Northern Lights would be really cool. And just the scenes that are there as well. Yeah,
I was going to say 25 hours in a plane to South Africa or Africa. It's I don't know. I might not be joining you for that one, but you have a way of getting me go to places that I probably wouldn't normally go to. So, we did you mentioned the owl trip. Just explain that experience and how cool that was.
Yeah, so I like to listen to a lot of podcasts, some of them about photography and wildlife photography. And I heard about this thing called an owl eruption that was going on. And, you know, the thing with photographers is they don't usually like to share too much information, especially about endangered species or rare species, because rightfully so, they don't want to, you know, hurt the species' chances of survival at all. But they said enough in the podcast that I could kind of piece together some things and start doing some more investigation about what was going on. And basically, for people who don't know what an owl eruption is, it's when the food source for an owl becomes so scarce that they have to migrate to a different location that they wouldn't normally go to in those kinds of numbers. And in this case, the great gray owls were coming down from Canada because the vole population was down so much. But what made this situation unique is that they came down, and when they got to Lake Superior, they were like, oh, we can't go anymore because this is a huge body of water. We can't fly over it. And so they all kind of congregated on the north shore of Lake Superior. And so through reaching out to a few contacts I had, doing some digging, I kind of found more information on more specifically where these owls were located. And from what I had heard, it was like probably the biggest owl eruption that there had been in the last like 25 years. And so it wasn't a convenient time, but I was like, I talked to my wife first, you know, I was like, she's not going to be interested in me doing this. And she was like, no, you should go. And so then I twisted your arm and Andy Folker's arm into driving up there. And because time was limited, we had to make it like seriously a 1-day trip. I think it was it 24 hours or 36 hours?
That's 24 hours.
24 hours. We probably drove for, like you said, 15, 18 hours at least in the car, including the time we were driving around looking for owls and stuff. And just really wanted to do that trip because photographing a great gray owl, I mean, unless you're living in some of these parks and stuff, that's a once in a lifetime thing for people like you and I. And we got to go up there, and I think we saw like between 6 to 8 different owls. And in the original place we went where I was thinking it was going to be the best, we saw some, but not a ton of great photography opportunities. And then we went to this other city that we weren't sure if we were going to go there, this little town where some owls were hanging out. And we got there, and of course there was tons of photographers there. Oh, yeah. But these owls just didn't seem to really care too much about the photographer's presence because they were hunting right in front of everybody and just posing and chilling, and got some awesome pictures. In fact, I just ordered a print that I've been wanting to print yesterday or a couple of days ago, and really looking forward to getting that print back because it's just a really clean picture and just a great pose, and really excited for that.
Yeah, those were some of the coolest owls I've ever seen. I do also remember it being 1 degree out, yes. And so it was very cold.
It was freezing.
However, we were in the car the majority of the time, and actually one of my favorite parts of that was when we were just driving around looking for owls, we found a red fox.
That's right.
That would poke its head out and kind of play peekaboo with us, and we didn't get great shots of him, but man, that's one of my bucket lists, even though I've gotten a picture of once or twice, but it's never a clean, you know, that red fur against the white snow.
Yeah.
So
we got to find one of those around here. So if anybody's listening to this podcast, message me on Facebook or micmiddleton@gmail.com. Let me know if you got a fox den you know of in the area. I just want to share one more thing about that owl trip. Have to share the story of, so this owl decided to leave its perch. We're all kind of in different locations, and flew directly at Andy. And first of all, you got to get some cool, and he actually did get a really great shot of the owl flying at him.
One.
Which he needs to post more to our group. which I guess he can't post his picture in our group. But anyways, and so this owl came straight at him and kind of hovered above him like it was about to land on him.
It was going to land.
It was going to land on him. And Andy freaked out.
Big time.
And so the owl was like, all right, I'm moving on. And we make fun of him, but maybe if I had a creature like that flying at me, I might do the same thing. But then after this experience, we see a bunch of pictures on social media of owls landing on photographers' cameras and all this kind of stuff. And it was like, that could have been you, Andy, if you would have just held still.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably the same owl, because looked like it was the same place. But yeah, that was pretty awesome. Like you said, 6 foot span wings coming at you. I'm probably not gonna stick around and see what happens. So yeah, that was pretty sweet. Getting back to Capturing Kenosha, what is your dream for this group of people that are joined the Facebook page?
It's really to build a community of people who have a passion for photography and for our city. And it's really a place where photographers have an outlet to share their stuff. You know, it's something, again, that you and I have talked about in the past is, okay, I'm taking all these pictures. Now what am I going to do with it? You know, and if you're not doing anything with it, there's still definitely some benefit to getting out there and getting that picture and whatever. But to be able to share it, to have people be able to appreciate it, because in a sense it's art, you know, and to have people appreciate your art and your creativity, there's a lot of reward in that. And it's been really cool to see this group grow far beyond anything that I think Tom or I ever imagined it would be. And would love to see it continue to grow and to continue to give photographers an outlet and even potentially opportunities. You know, maybe people are interested in purchasing some of their work or whatever it might be. And then the second part of it is that we want this group to be an avenue to actually improve the community and the city that we love. And so that's why we're looking for ways to do these different projects where we can use our photography to actually make a difference in the city of Kenosha.
Yeah. And when I talked to Tom as well, one of the things that I really enjoy about this group is, and you use the word art, and there's so many different photographers that take different pictures of the same, like the lighthouse, but you see so many different variations and renditions of it. And it just amazes me that we have this lighthouse that after a while you're like, it's just a lighthouse, but at the same time, every picture of it is different and it's unique, and it's very cool how this group has the creativity, the different art skills to create something that's beautiful. Mm-hmm.
And there's people at so many different levels of photography and with different equipment, but it's a place where we can all learn and grow from each other as well.
And so for somebody that's new for photography or joining the group, what would you encourage them to do?
Yeah, I mean, if you just enjoy capturing pictures, and obviously not everybody has the financial means to go out and buy equipment because it can become very expensive quickly. So I think, you know, even if you're just using your phone, start thinking more about how light impacts your picture. Start thinking about composition. Start thinking about the rule of thirds. Start experimenting and playing around with, you know, what makes a picture look better in your opinion. Or when you see somebody else's pictures, that's usually how I learn. It's like, man, I really like that picture. What made that picture so cool? And then try to go out and see if you can do that same thing. So I think that's the first thing I would say. But if you really caught the bug and you have some means to be able to purchase some equipment, you can get a lot of used equipment that's still in great shape for reasonable prices. Especially as the photography world has transitioned from DSLR to mirrorless, you can get a lot of really great DSLR cameras that can do great things for a pretty low price. So just getting that camera is kind of that next step, and then forcing yourself to shoot in manual mode. There's so many resources out there, podcasts, YouTube videos, whatever, that you can kind of self-teach yourself how to, to get better at photography and learn a camera. It can be intimidating at first, but I would recommend that people learn the exposure triangle, learn what aperture is, learn what shutter speed is, learn what ISO is. And once you start understanding how those things work together, again, just kind of getting back to that, I saw this picture was cool. It had that blurry background. Well, how do you get a blurry background? It's what they call bokeh or bokeh, as some people say. And we could go into all of that, and that's probably not the point of this podcast right now, but I guess those are some recommendations I would have. And the other thing I would say is this is a community. So if you have questions about gear or about, if somebody posted a picture to the group and you're like, I really like that picture. How did you do that? Don't be afraid to ask those questions. Nobody's going to, think you're silly for asking a question or whatever. It's really a great community of people. I know I'm always available if somebody wants to message me or whatever, and reach out. I know you would be as well,
One of the things I also would add to that is it took me a long time to actually get up the courage to post a picture to the group, because either I was too hard on myself or I didn't want somebody to be like, hey, that looks terrible. You know what I mean? Not that anyone has ever done that, but in my own mind, it's like, oh, that wasn't a very good picture. Why would I post that? And getting up that courage just to post one, then it allows you to post a second and a third, and you can see the maturity in your photography as the years go by. And like you said earlier, what else are you going to do with your pictures? This is a great avenue to share them instead of keeping them to yourself. And I've seen a lot of people that are just starting out posting pictures, and it's fantastic because it means our craft is growing. And again, I think that's a great comment, as well as, ask questions on our group. So if you had a piece of advice, and you kind of already shared a little bit of that, so any other piece of advice that you'd give somebody starting out?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing you can do is just get out there and do it. And don't stress about how incredible your picture is. Just get out there and do it. It's like anything in life. The more time you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And the awesome thing about photography, especially if you're outside, is you have that benefit of getting outside, enjoying nature, getting some sun, slowing down. And that's something that we could all use. So just the more reps you can get at it, and then finding those resources that you can continue to learn and grow, is probably my best piece of advice.
Yeah, if you're not out there shooting, you can't capture anything. And so if I go a couple of weeks without taking out my camera, I really start to feel antsy or rusty. And the best thing you can do is get out there and take a picture at least once a week, even if it's nothing spectacular.
Yep.
Just kind of getting the dust off the camera.
One other thing I would mention is that your picture can only be as good as what you're taking a picture of. And so one important thing is probably the most important thing in photography is lighting. And if you're taking pictures outside, you really want to get within that hour or two after sunrise, or even before, and then that hour or two before sunset or a little after. And that's when you're going to have your best natural light outside. And that's when you can get, when the sky's doing cool things. So those are good times to try to shoot. I know for me, a lot of times if it's harsh, mid-daylight sun, it's kind of like there's really not even much point to be out there, because the picture's just not going to look good. The light's going to be harsh. There's going to be lots of shadows. So just knowing the right times to get out there. And I do a lot of researching on when is the moon going to be in a good angle. There's just so many things you can do. So you got to do a little bit of research and understanding when the conditions are going to be right for a good picture as well.
Yeah, you actually do a fantastic job of that. In fact, I probably wouldn't have half the shots I have if it wasn't for you going, hey, the moon's going to be behind the lighthouse at this time and this place and this time of year. And I don't look up that kind of stuff. That just, my mind doesn't work that way, but yours does. And
I'm nerdy like that.
I appreciate it because it allows me to get some pretty cool shots that otherwise probably would never think about doing. kind of like the one in the middle of winter when it's negative 25 degrees out and I can't feel my fingers and we're shooting pictures of the lighthouse. One of my favorite shots I've ever taken.
Yeah.
But I would have never went out there unless you forced me to go out at 5 a.m.
That was cool.
It was cool, but that was rough. A little bit rough. Well, Mike, I just appreciate you coming on Capturing Kenosha podcast, and just want to give you this last opportunity to share anything else you'd like to share.
Yeah, the other thing I'd like to share is this group is going to only be as good as the group members and their involvement and their participation. And so as it's grown, the potential for the impact that we can have as a group has also grown. And so we're not going to do a ton of projects and stuff throughout the year, but when we do some of these projects, if everybody can participate and pitch in a little bit, I think we could do some really, really cool things. We got 8,000 members, over 8,000 in our group right now. And if everybody would be willing just to give a little bit of money and resources, and even if you don't have the money, it's just sharing, some of the posts and the work that we're doing with your friends, we could really do some cool things. So I just want to encourage everyone to jump on board and be part of what we're trying to do.
I couldn't say it any better, Mike. Well, I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us and allowing the listeners to get to know you a little bit better and what Capturing Kenosha is all about. As for the listeners, till next time, I encourage everyone to get out there and capture Kenosha.